There's an exact time, every single day, and almost no one knows this is happening while you're sleeping. While you're eating absolutely nothing, your liver opens a faucet, and it starts pushing glucose directly into your bloodstream. This happens between 3 o'clock and 6 a.m. with almost clockwork precision. And this is exactly why you wake up with higher blood sugar than when you went to bed. It's not the dinner. It's not weakness. It's not bad luck. It's biology. And biology has a solution. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact mechanism behind this, the precise time your liver does it, and 3 simple interventions you can start tonight to significantly reduce this process. Stay until the end, because the 3rd intervention is the most powerful, and it's where almost everyone gets it wrong. Let me ask you a direct question. Have you ever woken up with high fasting blood sugar after a whole night of not eating anything, and couldn't understand where that number came from? If so, you're not alone, and you're not doing anything wrong. The problem isn't what you eat. It's what happens when you stop eating, because from the outside, it doesn't make sense. You didn't eat for 8 hours, yet your numbers are rising. It feels like you're losing a battle you haven't even fought yet. But today you're going to understand exactly why. Here is what conventional medicine rarely explains clearly. Your liver stores glucose as glycogen. Think of it like an internal battery. During the night, when you aren't eating, your body starts using that battery to keep your organs functioning. This is a vital survival mechanism. Your brain, your heart, and your lungs all need energy while you sleep. And since you aren't consuming food, your body depends entirely on this internal storage to survive the night. So far, that's normal. That's how a healthy body works. The problem begins when that battery discharges the wrong way. In a healthy metabolism, the liver releases just enough energy to keep things running. But in people with insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, the liver doesn't get the correct signal to stop. It doesn't know when to shut down. So it keeps flooding your bloodstream with glucose, even when it's not necessary. Even when your blood is already saturated with sugar. It's like a faucet that never fully shuts off. Even without anyone asking for water, it just keeps dripping and dripping and dripping until the sink overflows. No control, no signal, no balance. And this process has a peak time that science has mapped with precision. But this time isn't what most people imagine. It's not right after you fall asleep. It's much later. And when you see it, everything will finally make sense. Studies published in Diabetes Care and the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology have documented a specific phenomenon called the dawn phenomenon. It works like this. Between 2 o'clock and 3 a.m., your brain begins to prepare your body to wake up. To do this, it triggers 2 powerful hormones, cortisol and glucagon. Cortisol is the wake-up hormone. It rises gradually during the night and peaks around 6 a.m. One of its main jobs is signaling to the liver. Release energy. The body will need it soon. Think of it as your body's natural alarm clock, revving up the engine before you even open your eyes. Glucagon is insulin's antagonist hormone. While insulin stores glucose inside the cells, glucagon orders the liver to release glucose into the blood. During the early morning hours, its levels naturally rise. So, while you are in your deepest sleep, these 2 chemical messengers are working together to flood your system with fuel. In healthy people, the pancreas detects this extra glucose and releases enough insulin to balance it out. The system works perfectly, no problem. But in people with insulin resistance, this balance is broken. The pancreas releases insulin, but the cells aren't listening. They become deaf to the signal. Glucose keeps piling up in the blood because it has nowhere to go. It's trapped in your bloodstream, and you wake up with a high number without having eaten anything at all. Your body prepared for the day by releasing sugar. But because your cells can't absorb it, that sugar just sits in your blood, causing that morning spike. The peak time for this process? Between 4 o'clock and 7 a.m. Your liver isn't against you. It's just following a biological program. The problem is when the system gets out of control. But here's where things get even more complex. There's an even more intense variation of this phenomenon, and it's the part most people never hear about. And this is where most people get completely misled by their own meters. This variation affects a specific group of type 2 diabetics in a completely different way. And if you're in that group, you might be doing the exact opposite of what you should. In some specific cases, there is a possible variation called the Somogyi Effect. It works like this. In some people, blood sugar drops abruptly during the night, usually between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m. This dip can be caused by medication, an inadequate nighttime meal, or the metabolic dysregulation itself, when your blood sugar crashes while you're asleep. Your body enters a state of absolute emergency. When blood sugar falls below the limit, your body hits the panic button. The liver gets an alarm signal. Critical level, release everything you have. Now! And it does exactly that. It floods your bloodstream with a massive surge of glucose to save you from the low. It's a rebound effect, a survival response. It's not a slow drip anymore. It's an explosion of sugar. When you wake up, the number is high, very high, and you think, I messed up dinner. But it wasn't dinner. It was your body reacting to a drop that happened while you were sleeping. At 3 a.m., which you never even knew existed, you are seeing the aftermath of a crisis that happened in the dark. And this is where everything you've seen so far starts to connect. To know if you suffer from the classic dawn phenomenon or the Somogyi Effect, you need to test your blood sugar at 3 a.m. This is one of the clearest diagnostic patterns you can find. It is the only way to truly see what is happening behind the scenes. If at 3 a.m. the number is normal or high, and in the morning it's even higher, it's the dawn phenomenon. If at 3 a.m. the number is low, and in the morning it's high, it's the Somogyi Effect. This distinction is critical, because the treatment for one is almost the opposite of the other. One requires less sugar production, while the other requires preventing a crash. Depending on the case, especially for those on medication, this pattern can vary. So now you know the problem. Here's how you stop it. And before we go further, if this is finally making sense to you, hitting the like button helps the channel get this information to those who need it most. Because the second intervention is the one that changes everything for most people. Most general recommendations say, don't eat after 8 p.m. This is imprecise. And imprecision in glycemic control has consequences. Clinical data indicates the liver typically needs a minimum period of 3 to 4 hours without carbohydrate intake to reduce nighttime glucose production. That's because digestion keeps your metabolic systems active. Your pancreas, liver, and intestines are still processing the previous meal. This prolongs a period when insulin is still being processed. When your system is busy digesting, it cannot transition into the resting state required to stabilize your blood sugar. When you eat refined carbohydrates close to bedtime, you create an initial glucose spike. The pancreas responds with insulin. Insulin falls. Glucagon rises in response, and the liver interprets this oscillation as a signal to produce even more glucose during the night. It's a vicious cycle. You are essentially fueling the very fire you're trying to put out. It's a domino effect that starts with your last meal and ends with the number you see on the glucose meter at 7 a.m. One piece falls an hours later. The result is a high morning reading. The intervention: finish your last meal 3 hours before bed. If you sleep at 11 p.m., your last meal should be by 8 p.m. This gives your body the time it needs to clear the insulin and enter a metabolic quiet zone. But it's not just the timing. It's the composition of that meal. Quality protein, healthy fats, and fibrous vegetables create a slow, stable release of energy. No spikes, no crashes, no chaos. Carbohydrates in the last meal are fuel for the dawn phenomenon. Protein and fat in the last meal are the brakes. Here is something most people are completely unaware of. Your muscles have the ability to absorb glucose without even needing insulin. This is an alternative theory. It's documented physiology. Muscles have transporters called GLUT4 which, when activated by physical movement, capture glucose directly from the bloodstream. This happens without depending on insulin to open the cell door. This is a secondary pathway for sugar to leave your blood, and it's incredibly powerful. What does this mean in practice? That a 10 to 15-minute walk after dinner can help reduce post-meal glucose by up to 22%, according to studies published in Diabetologia. By walking after your meal, you are literally siphoning the sugar out of your blood before it has a chance to trigger the nighttime insulin-glucagon chaos. But beware, timing matters. A morning walk has benefits, but a walk after dinner has a specific and different power. It reduces a blood sugar spike that occurs 1 to 2 hours after eating. This is the exact spike that will fuel the dawn phenomenon hours later. Think of it this way. The muscles in your thighs and calves during a light walk act as a sponge for glucose. They soak up the sugar that would have circulated through your blood all night long. You are reducing the raw material the liver has available to create those nighttime peaks. Less circulating glucose at night means less fuel for the liver's survival response. It doesn't need to be intense. It doesn't need to be long. 10 minutes of walking inside your house already activates this mechanism consistently. It creates a completely different nighttime metabolic environment. It's a simple, free, and biological tool that most people ignore. Now that you understand what's happening, let's get to what really changes the result. Before we get to the third intervention, the one almost everyone gets wrong, I've left something in the description, and the first comment that goes deeper into the exact mechanism we're discussing here. Don't click yet. Finish the video first. What still will make much more sense after you understand the third intervention. Stay with me. This third intervention goes against everything you've heard about diabetes. For people suffering from the Somogyi Effect, those who have a drop in glucose during the night, followed by a compensatory peak, eating nothing before bed might be exactly the problem. The starvation during the night is actually triggering the spike. The nighttime drop happens because there isn't enough energy to keep blood sugar stable during 7 or 8 hours of sleep. The body interprets this as a crisis and overreacts. It's an energy crash that leads to a sugar flood. The counterintuitive solution: a small snack with protein and fat before bed. Not carbs, not fruit, not whole grain crackers. We want a slow-burning fuel that keeps the battery from hitting zero. Research shows these foods can lead to better nighttime blood sugar stability. A tablespoon of almond butter, 2 to 3 squares of dark chocolate, 1 boiled egg, or a small portion of cottage cheese. These foods release energy slowly and sustainably. They can help reduce the abrupt drop in glucose during the night. And by stabilizing that drop, they decrease the alarm signal that leads the liver to push energy into the bloodstream. You are preventing the panic before it starts. The result: lower blood sugar in the morning. But, and this is critical, this intervention only applies to those with confirmed Somogyi Effect. For those with the classic dawn phenomenon, eating before bed can make the morning result worse. That's why testing at 3 a.m. is one of the clearest ways to understand this pattern. It's the map that tells you which path to take. You cannot fix what you cannot measure. And this is where everything connects, because there is one biochemical factor that can either amplify or sabotage everything you've seen so far: magnesium. Studies have demonstrated that more than 48% of people with type 2 diabetes have a deficiency in this mineral. And it's not a coincidence. It's a direct cause and effect cycle. Magnesium is the key that helps insulin open the cell door. Magnesium activates insulin receptors in muscle and liver cells. Without it, even if the pancreas produces an adequate amount of insulin, the cells can't process the signal. Insulin is present. The cell simply doesn't hear it. It's like having the right key, but the lock is rusted shut. Magnesium removes that rust. And here's the vicious cycle. High blood sugar causes the kidneys to eliminate magnesium through urine. With less magnesium, receptors work worse. With worse receptors, blood sugar rises more, and the cycle continues. It is a downward spiral that feeds itself every single day. High blood sugar. Lose magnesium. Insulin receptors work worse. Blood sugar rises. Lose more magnesium. Rich magnesium sources that don't raise blood sugar include pumpkin seeds, the most concentrated source per gram, cooked spinach and Swiss chard, almonds, avocado, and dark chocolate above 85%. It's no coincidence that the best nighttime snacks for glycemic stability are also the greatest sources of this mineral. By choosing the right snack, you are hitting two birds with one stone, stabilizing the sugar and repairing the receptors. A single night of poor sleep reduces insulin sensitivity the next day by up to 25%. This has been documented in the journal Sleep in multiple controlled studies. This isn't just fatigue. It's a metabolic problem. The mechanism, cortisol, which I mentioned as a trigger for the dawn phenomenon, should reach its lowest level between midnight and 2 a.m. during deep sleep. This cortisol valley is the period when the liver rests from its glucose production function. It's the time when your metabolism resets. When sleep is fragmented, light, or short, cortisol never fully drops. It stays elevated throughout the night, and the liver gets a continuous signal. Produce, produce, produce. Because your brain thinks you're under stress, it keeps the sugar faucet open all night long. This means that sleep control is a legitimate metabolic intervention. It is just as important as your diet. 3 practices with scientific evidence to help reduce nighttime cortisol. First, total darkness in the bedroom. Light suppresses melatonin and messes with the cortisol cycle. Remember, melatonin and cortisol work in opposition. When one goes up, the other must go down. If your melatonin is low because of light, your cortisol stays high and your sugar stays elevated. Second, a cool temperature between 64 and 68 degrees. The body needs to lower its core temperature to enter deep sleep. Warm rooms prevent this process and increase the number of nighttime awakenings. Every time you wake up, your cortisol spikes. And third, diaphragmatic breathing before bed. 5 cycles of deep breathing activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state. This actively suppresses cortisol. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 6. The longer exhalation is a signal the nervous system uses to reduce the state of alertness. This tells your brain it is safe to shut down the sugar production. The untreated dawn phenomenon isn't just an annoying number on the glucose meter in the morning. When this pattern persists for long periods without control, it's an active process of damage happening while you sleep. Every night that your sugar is high, your body is paying a price. In the liver, chronic excess glucose production forces the liver to work beyond its capacity. Over time, the organ begins to accumulate fat between liver cells. This is a process called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This fat then makes your insulin resistance even worse. It's a self-reinforcing loop of damage. The more fat your liver has, the more glucose it produces at night. In the kidneys, chronically elevated fasting glucose overloads the renal glomeruli, the filtering units. Over years, this stress causes thickening of the filtering membranes. This leads to reduced renal efficiency and, eventually, chronic kidney issues. Your kidneys are working overtime every single night to filter sugar that shouldn't be there. In the nervous system, excess sugar reacts with cell proteins in a process called glycation. This process progressively damages a myelin sheath, the protective covering of your nerves. This is exactly why people experience tingling, numbness, or a burning sensation in their feet and hands. You are literally eroding the insulation of your body's wiring while you sleep. In the cardiovascular system, chronic high blood sugar increases arterial wall inflammation. This promotes the formation of plaque and significantly raises the risk of a heart attack or stroke. Clinical data shows that every 1% increase in your A1C can increase cardiovascular risk by nearly 18%. Everything occurs silently. No pain, no alarm. The dawn phenomenon is silent because it happens when you are unconscious, but its effects are cumulative and progressive. They build up over months and years until the damage becomes visible. I'll be direct. You don't need to change everything at once. Radical and simultaneous changes rarely last. What works are precise adjustments, applied consistently. Small wins lead to big metabolic changes. Individually, these strategies already help, but together, they completely change the nighttime metabolic environment. You are no longer at the mercy of your biology. You are directing it. Here is a protocol. This week, finish your last meal 3 hours before bed. Eliminate refined carbohydrates from dinner. Add quality protein and healthy fat. Give your liver the rest it deserves. Also this week, walk for 10 minutes after dinner, not after lunch, after dinner. Specifically, activate those GLUT4 transporters and soak up that sugar. For the next 3 nights, measure your blood sugar at 3 a.m. Write it down. Compare it to your morning fasting level. This data is your map. It will tell you exactly if you have the dawn phenomenon or the Somogyi Effect. It will tell you which of these interventions is your top priority, based on the result. If at 3 a.m. the number is normal or high, focus on interventions 1 and 2. If at 3 a.m. the number is low, add the protein snack before bed. Daily, add magnesium sources to your meals. Prioritize sleep in a dark, cool environment. 5 diaphragmatic breaths before lying down. Control your cortisol, and you control your sugar. This does not replace medical advice, but it is information that puts you in control of what happens to your own body during the night. Every day that passes without understanding what your liver does at night is a day you wake up with a number that doesn't make sense. You're left feeling frustrated and helpless, making decisions based on incomplete information. If you always thought the problem was dinner, now for the first time, you understand what's really been happening inside your body every single night. You've been looking at the wrong part of the clock. Now nothing about your morning numbers is random anymore. Now you're not guessing anymore. You're in control. Now you have the map. You know the time. You know the mechanism. You know the 3 interventions. The next step is yours. Comment liver below if this finally made things click for you. I read every single one. I want to see who's truly committed to taking back control of their mornings. The link is in the description and the first comment. I've left something there that will complete what you've just seen and take your understanding even deeper. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who wakes up frustrated with their fasting glucose without understanding why. You might be giving them the key they've been looking for. Hitting the like button and subscribing makes all the difference in continuing to bring this life-changing information to those who need it most. See you in the next video.